It's good, man. It kind of feels weird welcoming you on the show because, I mean, we're business partners and we've known each other for so many years now. We're doing work nonstop together, but I appreciate you taking the time to come on today. But I want to learn a little bit more about you. I feel like we've had, you know, a relationship business-wise for so long, but I want to hear a little bit about your story, how you got started in the digital media marketing space, and obviously now we own the marketing agency together. So it'd be cool to hear your story from start to what we're doing now and kind of hearing a little bit more about your vision and your experience as we scale this business opportunity to hopefully 50 to 100 million in some point in the future.
Of course, man. And thank you for having me on the show. I'm excited to be a guest finally. I know we've been talking about it for a while.
Oh yeah. And now we got the podcast set up looking good, man.
We're official.
No more. we don't have any more, couch talks that I had with the one camera. So, so tell me a little bit about yourself, man. You're from Boston originally, that you grew up there, like start to finish, like from Boston, born and raised, and then went off to college in Boston as well, right?
Yeah, so I got an interesting story because first generation Nigerian American. So my parents came here actually in the 80s.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
And youngest of 4. And all of my sisters were actually born like across like the U.S. Yeah. Couple born in Connecticut, born in Alabama. And then by the time my family moved up to the Boston area, that's when I came along.
Okay.
But I feel like with that kind of first generation mentality just comes with like the aspirations to want to do more, right? Because your parents took such a big risk leaving their home country, leaving their family. So it's kind of like my whole life I've kind of just had a vision of how do I take it to the next level, kind of leave something for my lineage. And ownership, just kind of being an entrepreneur was always something that naturally I gravitated towards.
Yeah.
So that kind of started in like the simplest forms, right? It's like being like 5 years old, trying to landscape for your neighbor and get like $5 so you can go to the local store or whatever.
Yeah.
And then funny enough, like the biggest taste of entrepreneurship that I got at a young age honestly came from music. So
really,
music was always something that was like my first passion and first love. It started with my older sister buying me like a Kanye West like college dropout CD. I was like 8 years old, and I'm like, wow, these beats are like, I don't know what it is. I love this. This is really cool. Funny enough, when I was 11 years old, my mom signed me up for piano lessons, and I was pissed, like, because I just thought, you know how kids are. They're like, oh, that's like soft, like that's like whatever.
We get made fun of at school.
Yeah, for trying to actually like learn and like become like well-rounded, but. My piano teacher actually was a local DJ and producer.
Oh shit!
So it actually ended up being like one of the biggest things that happened in my life because he not only was teaching me how to play piano, but then he also got me into like production, and I started selling beats for like $15 in high school, just doing, and that's where I was kind of like, oh wait, this is something that I'm passionate about, and it can actually bring me some money. Obviously on a very lower scale, but
some value you're gonna be giving yourself, right, from learning that skill.
From a skill that I already was going to hone and work on already because I enjoyed it. So that kind of gave me a direction of like what entrepreneurship could be.
Yeah.
I wasn't really taking it that seriously until it was time to go to school. So like you said, Boston area, went to University of Massachusetts Amherst. So that's like 3.5 hours west of Boston. It's not really even, it's not close at all. It's still technically in state, but closer to New York. So basically, before I, ever step foot on UMass, it's like, what is your major going to be, right?
Yeah.
And I decided business, right? Because I figured if I want to be an entrepreneur someday, I don't know what it's going to be.
Got to learn somewhere, right?
I got to learn something. And at that point, I'm thinking I might be like the next Metro Boomin. Like, I'm just thinking, like, what can I do? So marketing I gravitated towards that because I figured I've always been like good at math, but it wasn't my favorite in school.
Yeah.
Always been creative, like obviously with music and just was into like artistic things. When I was a child, I was always doing like art shows and stuff like that. I used to draw a lot.
Yeah.
And I was like marketing, I felt like it exposed me or could expose me to every single industry. It's something everything needs, every business needs. And I figured that's the one thing that if I owned my own company, no matter what it was, like I would want to be able to handle my own marketing. I'll pay someone else to do accounting or some of the other stuff that I don't really care for.
So you said that your parents came from Nigeria in the 80s, right? So tell me a little bit, did they just move from Nigeria straight to the States? Was it Connecticut? Was it was it in Alabama, you said, as well?
Yeah, so my dad was actually the first one to come over, and he went to New York. So strong ties to New York, always loved New York. And then my mom came after him, and they actually attended UConn, University of Connecticut, where they both got their PhDs. So they came here for education.
Yeah.
And then, just kind of bounced around after my sisters were born, kind of chasing the jobs that my mom or dad would get, and then ultimately settled down in the Boston, Massachusetts area, because that's what they liked the most out of, the areas that they had seen.
Everything else.
Yeah.
It's crazy that they come over here for like an education aspect, right? And then you go the entrepreneur route, obviously, with what you're doing now. I know you're at Google and you started a marketing agency as well. It's interesting because it feels like first generation like that, they would kind of like hammer in that you just need to get a really great education, go on, be a doctor, lawyer, some of those typical, routes. So it's interesting. You said that almost from the beginning, you've always had an interest in entrepreneur world. So what do you think that is? Do you think that that's more of like an innate feeling coming from a different country? Like your family is born somewhere else and you think that's like the American dream? Is that more of something you think is natural or something you've picked up over time, just like meeting with people, knowing what people are up to? Is it kind of like a network thing, or you think it's more like an innate thing?
No, that's a good question. I think it is honestly kind of innate. But going back to the piece around education, that's like everything, especially with, all the immigrants I've met, that's like everything, because a lot of times that is the ticket out, right?
Yeah.
But I think just since I was born, I kind of just gravitated towards how can I
make money,
be independent, and make my own money. Like I've always wanted to be independent, even though I was the youngest of four. My sisters there's a big age gap, so I kind of grew up almost not the only child, but just like the only one in the house for
I feel
some of the formative years.
Yeah.
Had a lot of friends and stuff, but I don't know. I've just always been about like independent. Like I want to be able to just handle my own, like wanted to be able to buy my own clothes as soon as I started working at 14 on the W-2.
Yeah.
Everything under the table before that. But it was kind of just an innate feeling. But the cool thing, I actually learned this recently, actually this year. I didn't know that my dad actually always had a dream of actually starting a business back in Nigeria. Like ultimately returning to Nigeria and starting a business there, because there's obviously a lot of opportunity there.
Of course.
And so that kind of made me feel good, just knowing like, hey, like I'm actually following in his footsteps, but doing it here.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think for me, it's always just thinking about, like, I want to do something generational. Like I want to leave an impact where it's like my grandkids, great grandkids are like, damn, your great grandfather, like he did this and this. And I want to set an example and also just make life easier, kind of move them,
push it down
one step. Yeah, like my parents did for me. Like they came here, took a big risk.
Yeah.
And then that gave me like the understanding our education is important, like give me the baseline to be able to take it to this level. And then hopefully the next generations, they can have my baseline that's hopefully set pretty high.
Yeah.
And then keep doing it too. So that's, I think, is an innate feeling.
That's a dope drive, man. I feel like that's why we're so level-headed and level set with each other, is because very similar story, except not immigrant-based. It's more just growing up with literally nothing, one of 5 kids, single mom, works 3 jobs just to put clothes on our back, would do anything for us. So like learning firsthand hard work, and then kind of always leading. She was leading by example, and it kind of like I learned what I had to do to make sure that I could give everybody a better life, like give back to her, give back to my sister, give back to my family. And then, never have like my kids struggle. Like, we struggled a little bit, so it's like why I never wanted to put that in my family's situation. So it's almost like I just want to create that change belief. But my mom worked her ass off, so she's like also giving me an opportunity to get out, always saying, go to college, get out of this town, go make something of yourself, stay in school, all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of like the same, in a different level, but it's pretty interesting I feel like that's why we're so level set with everything that goes on.
So,
but no, it's such
role models.
Yeah, man, it's dope. It's dope. You look up to people in different ways. And I think that there's just it kind of like I have the same feeling as you. I feel like it's an innate thing, right? I feel like it's inside of you, but it's also through your experience, right? It's like things that you see, and you kind of use things as you don't ever want to get to that point. It's almost like a fear of I never want to go back to this, and I just want to keep progressing and as the future it holds.
Exactly. And it's kind of like, again, like my siblings have been huge in my life, but it's that feeling of like I don't want to be the one that's looked at as like, no matter what I've done, like every job I've worked, like every class I've been in, I don't want to be looked at as like the one that was holding it back or the one that was doing the worst. Like that's always, it's been like something in me that's like, I need to, it's competitive nature, I think. Course, but even with my sisters who are super successful, I'm like, I'm trying to be the best. And they always tell me like, I'm on that track, and they're proud of me. And it's having that support. Yeah, exactly. It's not a competition to end. It's just like,
but there's like a competitive edge. You're like, I want to get to that point too. Cause I saw it's almost like an inspiration, right? Like my sister's the same way, super successful in what she's done. She's climbed the corporate ladder and she's put herself in a position. And I'm like, I really want what she's done, but more. And it's not like a competitive thing. It's more of like, she set that example and I just want to continue that, that legacy within the family tree.
Exactly.
I feel like that's kind of like similar situation with you, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I was going to say as well, like, cause we're kind of talking about my timeline of like my whole journey professionally. And so after college, of course, I mean, as soon as I graduated, had to hit the ground running with like my first full-time job. I think I started like in May of 2017. I graduated in May 2017. And something about just like not being scared to take a risk. I'm pretty grateful that I have that naturally as well. Yeah. But I remember a lot of people just like opted to move back home for a year or so and whatever. And I understand everyone's situation is different. And I was able to come into a opportunity to actually get a pretty cheap like living situation in the city, right out of school, about like a month or two out of school. Yeah. And I knew that at the job I was at, like I wasn't making that much. It was like base level marketing salary. I got a job at one of the internship companies that I did over my 4 years. And I knew that I'd probably be stretching myself a little thin to make that jump to the city right away, but I also knew that that would naturally just motivate me to figure out other ways to make more income so that I could sustain it. Yeah. And that's where it kind of drove me to work the 9 to 5, but then also figure out, okay, at my 9 to 5, at the time I was doing SEO. I'm already learning this craft. I'm already, an expert in it, considered an expert in it. Yeah. So are there other people that could benefit from my skill set? And I started making connections in Boston, and it kind of just, a lot of things have just happened kind of naturally for me, I feel, just because I was putting in the work. And then I don't know if you believe in like higher power and all that stuff. I don't know, but things just fell into place because I feel like someone noticed, my peers noticed, and someone noticed, and then opportunities came to me. And then ultimately ended up meeting someone at that first full-time job that brought me into my first actual LLC, first time doing, a legit, starting a legit business. Yeah, absolutely. And before we get into that, I want to touch on, you said SEO, and for the people that don't know what SEO is, I would love to hear just like a high level, because you see it all the time. Like there's so many people on social media, there's so many businesses out there, there's so many people creating websites, and they're like, oh yeah, I'm boosting my SEO, but it's obviously plugins on these things like Shopify or whatever, like these just like template pages that say, we're going to implement SEO. What is it in your eyes? Like, what is it in a high level that can be more beneficial for people to understand on a more baseline level? Yeah. So SEO stands for search engine optimization. So speaking about how can you optimize your website to show up on those search engine results pages? So whether it's Google or Bing, or if you're using Yahoo, whatever, there's a lot that goes into it, but the way that I like to simplify is like almost boosting your website's kind of credit score in that world of search engines, right? So what are the different tactics that I can leverage within this practice called SEO to boost my page's score and make Google, Bing, etc. recommend my page over the competition when people type in, running shoes, if I sell shoes or sneakers as a retailer. So that's like the analogy that I love to use, kind of boosting your website's credit score on search engine results pages. Yeah.
And it's so important, right? Like we both know what that is. Like you want to obviously rank higher. It goes hand in hand when you run ads on your product or service. Yeah. When you talk about SEO, just like a brief, like, how do I boost that website score? Like, give me like the 3 top pillars you think to boost that website score. Is it like the backlinks? Is it more so like the 404 errors? What do you think is the most valuable thing you could do in terms of increasing your SEO or your website score, as you referred to?
Yeah, so like I said, there's a lot that goes into it, but there's actually like 3 key pillars that any SEO specialist is going to talk to you about. So you mentioned things like 404 errors and backlinks. So that would classify as like technical SEO.
Yep.
But then there's also like your on-page SEO, which is talking about, all right, in my example, running shoes. Like, do you have keywords on your webpage that if Google or Bing, any of these search engines are scanning your page, they understand that that page is about running shoes? Because ultimately they want to make sure that the user, whatever they're searching for, your landing page can actually help deliver them that outcome.
Yeah.
And then there's off-page SEO, which you touched on with the backlink. So just making sure that there's no like spammy web pages that direct to you, or because all of that again will kind of lower that search credit score analogy that I was talking about.
Yeah.
So depending on where your website stands, you may have to focus more time in any 3 of these areas. But generally speaking, if you're starting a website from scratch, I would say make sure that it's like a very clear structure, clean structure to navigate. So, you know, homepage, if you're selling something, have a shop. Don't overdo it. Have an About Us section. Make sure that it's keyword rich. That's a big thing, because when we talk about these search engines, the first step of a search is the keyword, right? So someone's typing in looking for something, which makes them a great lead coming in, because they're clearly in market for something that you're providing. So you want to make sure that those keywords and relevant keywords are throughout your web pages, and make sure that these search engines understand that that's what you are here to offer. And then from the technical and kind of off-page standpoints, for a brand new website, as long as you don't set it up terribly, hopefully you'll be okay on those fronts. But that's kind of where you want to start, is that on-page content. Make sure that it's keyword rich, and make sure that it's relevant.
Yeah, of course. It's interesting because like there's so many competitors out there, right? Like we talk to people all the time, and honestly, I still have this thought and wonder all the time about SEO. When somebody is selling shoes, right, and there's Nike versus Adidas, they're obviously both going to be keyword rich. So how is it more of a branding thing? Is it more of the backlinking? Is it the off page? Like which one of those 3 pillars do you focus on to kind of rank above those competitors?
So in that example, just because those are such like powerhouses, and it's of course going to be harder in that situation, your best bet is going to be running kind of Google ads to try and outbid them. Which is going to be tough as well, but we'll talk about that. But basically, there's something called indexing. So it's the amount of times that your website, now that you've created your website, it's keyword rich, the amount of times that you have showed up for those relevant searches. So for web pages like Nike that are getting millions of impressions a day, they're indexing over and over, and that's all boosting their score, that credit score that I was talking about. For a brand new website, it's going to be hard. It takes time. SEO, honestly, one of the reasons why I made the jump from just focusing on SEO to, we'll talk about it, but I ended up doing Google ads, and it's a lot faster pace. SEO takes a little while to kind of ramp up and see the results. But over time, as you focus on those 3 core pillars I was talking about, and then you're maybe pairing it with running Google ads or writing blogs and just making sure that your website pops up in more relevant areas, you'll be able to index more and more, and then you'll get recommended more and more. But it does take time to build that up, and it could be tough for a newer website or a brand new website. But of course, that's where some of those others services can help.
Building businesses take time. Obviously, Nike and Adidas didn't become those over like a year, which I feel like nowadays everybody has such a short attention span. It's like even the clients that we talk to nowadays, man, it's like, oh, I want to see results ASAP. It's like, well, you kind of have to invest some time, some money, and like kind of let some people that are experts in the field kind of develop that, right? We've both been building this brand for 2 years now, building this company for 2 years, and we're starting to see some pretty significant success now, but it's been a lot of work building those structure pieces, investing in our website, investing in ourselves, investing in our structure, company, everything. But people like right away have such a short attention span where they want those results like ASAP. With SEO, it's kind of not measurable, right? Like right away. So I feel like it kind of steers people away, and they're like, oh, I'm boosting my SEO because I'm using one of those templates that are saying that it's SEO rich. And I'm just like, this doesn't really make too much sense. But
well, that's where that kind of that unique strategy that we offer comes into play, right? So for running shoes, it's going to take a while, and you will probably never catch up to Nike organically for that keyword. But are there any brand keywords. Like you should be protecting your brand when it comes up next to your marketing. There shouldn't be anyone else showing for a website there. Exactly. Are there any, do you specialize in a specific, shoes might not be the best example, but specific maybe service line of like medicine?
Yeah.
And then are there keywords that other competitors are not playing on that you can own? Yeah. If you can own those, because no one else is really targeting them yet, then that's going to help you index. That's going to help you stand out in those searches. So it's doing that keyword research and understanding where there's lanes for you to immediately kind of drive that impact with SEO, and then you can work on growing your exposure in other areas over time.
Yeah. And I'm sure we'll talk about this, but that kind of comes down to like being really fucking great at one thing and niching down so granular that like you're focusing on one thing that you're really good at, you're going to show up on those things that you rank for. So
exactly.
It's almost like you're never going to create something like extravagantly new. You just kind of have to create a change belief in a certain industry and really focus on that one disconnect for something in order to prosper, whether it's a business, service, product, whatever it may be. But talked a lot about SEO. I really kind of want to go back a little bit, talking about that was your first job. And then you kind of made the jump after that first job. You said SEO, you just wanted to take the jump into paid media, Google Ads, or where was that?
Yeah. So this is actually, so like I'll quickly backtrack a bit. So when I was in college, I actually did a different internship like every single summer I was in college, which is, I think, unique. A lot of people I know probably didn't do their first internship till maybe junior year, at least like sophomore year. So my first internship was at a digital marketing agency, actually in San Diego. At that agency, I got exposed to all different teams. They were a full service agency. They did content in-house. I mean, pretty much, I guess, they did content in-house. They did social media, and then they did search. I just kind of stumbled into search. Being at school and still having a focus on like music at the time, I was definitely internet marketing. I'm like, I got to learn internet marketing. I'm still selling beats, and I'm still, I'm paying rent off selling beats to local rappers and stuff So I'm like, internet marketing, cool, as long as I'm learning something here. Ended up getting on the search team, and they did SEO. So that was something, a lot of like tedious projects and hours. You mentioned that now there's a lot of like built in like Wix and things like that will just offer SEO. They're better than nothing because a lot of websites might have no SEO built in, no back end stuff. But a lot of that work can be really like time consuming, big spreadsheets. I'm manually writing like different content for a number of advertisers, from like children's toys to like movie companies, stuff like that. So that was my first exposure. Fast forward to my senior year when it's time to graduate. The internship I did my senior year, also on the SEO team, they bring me back full time. And I was there for, I think, 9 months, but ultimately I was like, This
is in San Diego?
No, so this is in Boston now.
Okay.
Yeah, so a different company that I worked for senior year.
Got it.
Yeah, in Boston. But yeah, I was there for like 9 months full time. So this is after already having probably, I guess, in total, like a year or two experience in SEO. I was like, I kind of want to shake things up. I kind of want to do something different. I've been exposed to, paid search. So that's like the Google Ads component, Bing Ads, a little bit at these agencies. And I was like, that's kind of cool. And maybe it's the kind of like the gambler in me. I was like, I like the idea of like managing money and trying to bid. And we can talk more later about how the actual like auctions work. It's called auctions for figuring out who's going to rank where. But it comes down to actually having like a daily budget, monthly budget, and optimizing bids to basically outbid the competition for that spot so that you can be seen in positions 1, 2, 3 and down. And I was like, that's more fast paced, immediate results. And it comes down to like my strategy of how I want to manage this money and optimize these ads for whoever my client is. So made that jump. Honestly, my manager at the time, like, he was pretty hurt about it. I think he made a comment about like I wouldn't like it or something like that. Maybe I wouldn't last.
Paid media over the SEO side. He was pissed.
But ended up jumping from that company. And I mean, at the time, man, well, I'm like 21, and I told you I was barely making anything there. I made that jump to the city to drive myself.
Hell yeah.
At this point, I'm also taking on small projects, SEO on the side. And this was a pretty big, pay jump for me to make that jump anyway. So I took that, hit the ground running, small team. Been really lucky in my corporate career that I've had a lot of like managers that I really like. Like I've never had a bad manager or anything like that.
That's good, man. That's
and I've learned a lot from every team I've been a part of. So hit the ground running, paid media, and I hit the fast track and it really caught on and was able to elevate pretty well there. And it's funny enough, I actually entered that team at a time that they were onboarding a new product, a new Google product, still Google Search, still Google Ads, but like the enterprise product called Search Ads 360.
Okay.
So I got to kind of see that from the ground up, what it takes to implement it, how powerful it can be with all the different features. And then ultimately, like a year and 9 months in that role, that's when Google actually came knocking and for that specific
the
product.
Google reached out to you. You applied.
Every job I've had since college, they reached out to me. And that's what
crazy,
I'm saying,
man.
just kind of that work ethic and just putting that into the universe, stuff has just come from it. And this whole time, in that year and 9 month span that I was leveling up on the Google Ads side, also leveled up my personal entrepreneur, hunt.
Yeah,
Instead of just doing SEO by myself, I joined a creative collective, we called ourselves, where we were doing a lot of different like content marketing and actually like creative for various clients between Boston and New York. So I was really growing a lot at this time, like rapid growth, like understanding how to write contracts, understand how to negotiate, taking on like bigger and bigger clients. I wasn't a one-man team. I understand, or I learned the strength in numbers when building a company. And then it all kind of culminated to getting that call, moving to New York. And then the rest is history.
That's crazy, man. So, I mean, there's so many people out there that try to get into Google, like hundreds of thousands, every it seems like month when they put a job posting out there and they come knocking on your door and you're like, oh yeah, I'll accept Google. Yeah, man.
LinkedIn DM. I thought it was a joke at first. I was like, this is sketchy. Set up a call, then got another call, then another. So
that's crazy, man. And this is all for that. Give me a timeline. Is this like 2019, 2018?
Yeah. So this is 2019 summer. They actually. So my birthday is June 29th. I got a DM shortly after 4th of July. So I'm coming off like a week of,
You're on a bender.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, there's no way.
So I'm seeing this, like, I'll get to that, on Wednesday.
You're seated at the club. You're like, nah.
I'm like, whatever. I was probably talking shit to my friends, like, look, like.
That's crazy, man. You know what's wild is like, it's crazy that they actually came knocking, because I feel like nowadays, but it's kind of interesting because paid media and Google Ads is like, everybody hears about them now and knows about them. At least I think so. I think it's way more popular than it was 4 or 5 years ago. So I feel like it's cool. Like you kind of caught with that.
Exactly. It was perfect timing. Like, and I'll tell you even a little more of why it was perfect timing. But to your point, I think digital marketing in general, just since 2020 and everyone kind of having to revamp how they're situation. Like you couldn't see people face to face, so people had to learn what the different channels were. But it was perfect timing because the company I came from, they had just got acquired when I joined. So I think they were just kind of under the radar. And then I joined at a time of rapid growth. So maybe the recruiter just kind of noticed, like, oh, this company, they have some talented people. And then I ended up being
perfect timing.
It's just everything works.
Hell yeah. Things work in some really mysterious ways. But I mean, that's like, you got to be really grateful for that, man. That's a crazy ass story, man.
Yeah.
That's dope. And you said a couple things that I want to touch on. One was, I kind of want to relate back to the SEO thing while it's fresh, because we were talking about SEO and talking about how you can rank higher, above competitors like the Adidas and Nike situation. And then you start talking about how you can outbid people on the Google Ads and paid media side. Yeah. And that's where it becomes a volume play. Who has more capital, correct? That's where it's like, okay, now Adidas and Nike they're really powerhouses in the space, right? But at the same time, it's like, who can outbid them on the Google Ads side to put more money behind campaigns? Is that kind of how you rank a little bit higher and create more sale? Yeah, so when we talked about SEO, search engine optimization, that's what we call organic. So that's like, how can I just organically, no money, make myself more presentable to these search engine results pages. On the Google Ads side, the reason why I gravitated towards it is because it's faster paced, because to your point, it really comes down to like budget and of course like the strategy behind it. There's different techniques you can optimize your campaigns with, but
basically the way that search engine results page works is it's an auction. So, and it happens in a matter of seconds. It's very crazy, but thousands of different signals are taken into account by Google in a matter of seconds to understand like who's the better choice for their user. But one of the biggest ones is called a bid.
Okay.
So one of the reasons why Google is one of the best like ROI, efficient channels for a company to leverage is the fact that you only get charged when someone clicks on your ad.
Yep.
So basically what you're telling the system in those, milliseconds is I'm willing to pay X to get a user to click on this ad. Whereas your competitor might be willing to pay Z and maybe they fall under you.
Yeah.
But there's all these other factors that some of them really relate to SEO and some of those core like pillars that I touched on earlier, where Google might say, this.
They don't really trust you.
Yeah, they might say
website score you were talking
exactly.
About. Right? So if it's low, then they're obviously not going to hit on that.
Yeah, they might say, honestly, for your competitor, because their website is amazing, they can get this top spot for a little cheaper than you would.
Yeah.
But if you have crazy money and you're willing to outbid them by whatever, then we'll show you, but you're kind of sketchy.
Yeah. So it's more of like if you have more money, you're better, but really you're on like shaky ground there.
Yeah, and I can't like iterate enough that it's a lot of signals that go into it, but one of like if we're just simplifying it, there's a bid, and if you can outbid your competitor, you're in a good position.
So it's really capital or structure is really what helps you rank a lot higher.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, both together if you're covering on all sides. So that's why if you're working with a talented agency on your SEO and on your Google ads, sky's the limit.
Of course.
Yeah.
It's crazy because Google ads and obviously people run Instagram ads, Meta ads, LinkedIn ads, all the social media platforms. But like you said, Google is best because it's cost per click, whereas those social medias are like almost like cost per viewer impression. So I could be paying, $1,000 for 100,000 impressions, which sounds good, but how many times have we seen fake bots on Instagram, fake bots on Facebook? Exactly. It's like, who are these 100,000 accounts? Like, is it just wasted air? Is it a wasted account? Like, where is it going? And are those qualified leads for me to even bring in some business, whether it's I'm owning a shoe brand or I have a service or a marketing agency or whatever I have, it could be like a real estate company. Like, am I generating the right leads? Am I contacting the right people? Obviously,
it's a great
strategies,
question.
But
it's a great question. And, all these channels give you the ability to really create audiences and try and zero into like exactly who you're looking for. But no matter which way we kind of, shape it, in marketing, we always think about what we call like the marketing funnel, right? So where these two channels in this example, like a Facebook and Meta, and where a Google would fit, anything that's like kind of display and cost per 1,000 impressions, where you were mentioning like a CPM model, where you're charged per thousands of eyes that just see an impression, but maybe they didn't take action on the ad. Yeah, that's going to sit in that top funnel, right? So it's like, it's more so for awareness. I just want people to see me, maybe get familiar with the name. But ultimately, if you have a full funnel approach, so say you're that shoe brand, if you're running ads on Meta and it's like great content, people see you, maybe they don't action it there, but there's a statistic where like people, honestly, they normally go between like 3 or so different devices before making a buying decision. So someone might see your ad on Facebook and it's like, oh, I recognize that branding, that logo, it's great. And then ultimately they might search for more, info about your product on Google. Yeah. And again, because that whole process starts with someone actively searching for a keyword that's related to you, they're already in market for whatever your product or solution is. Yeah, so smart. Maybe they saw the ad on Instagram, maybe they've seen it a couple times. Yeah. Maybe they're making up 10% of that 1,000 impressions you were just charged for. Yeah. But then they say, all right, let me search this brand name because let me just see, I've never heard of them. Let me see if they're legit. Is their website good? SEO. But then they click on the Google ad and now they're buying something. Yeah. So it all works together.
Hand in hand. Yeah. I feel like people don't have that full picture perspective, man, because even what you're saying, for example, I saw this brand on social media so many times, TikTok, Instagram, GLD, the jewelry brand. Yeah. They must have a crazy budget.
Their budget's crazy.
They're just probably spending out the ass. But honestly, the ROI must be there because I kept seeing it over and over again. And I'm like, all right, just keep swiping by. But it creates that like that mentality, that brand awareness. And I'm like, oh, GLD now. I'm seeing it like 2 months later. I'm like, you know what? That's kind of fire. That's kind of fire. And then I'll go to their website. I'll go to Google. And by the time I'm at Google, I'm like, I'm kind of warm lead now. Like, I'm like, fuck this brand. But now I'm like, oh, wait, this is kind of dope.
And that's the funnel. You started up here just as, hey, let's cast a wide net.
Yep.
And then by the time you got to Google, it's like, we almost have them.
Yeah.
Once he clicked on that ad.
Conversion.
Yeah.
Sale. Which is crazy because there's so many damn people. Goes back to our first conversation. It's like people want results now. Where I've seen GLD be, launching ads out there for a year, like probably over. Like they're still running those campaigns, and it's still creating that. Marketing's all psychology, right? It's like literally, it's all just like trying to get the consumer to purchase your product or service. If it's a service, it's a little different. But if it's a product, it's really just like get your brand out there, show them why you're really fucking good at this one service or why your product is the best, and you can kind of convert them slowly.
I've had exposure to like all types of industries, which again, I'm grateful for because now, I mean, we're hopping on calls left and right, and it's A to B
everywhere, man.
But with that comes like we call conversion delay. Everyone's got a different conversion delay. Yeah. So like engagement rings or something that's very expensive, it might take someone 2 weeks from the time that they saw your Google ad, maybe even 4 weeks from the time they saw your Instagram ad to ultimately become a purchase.
Yeah.
Whereas maybe, a cheap product, maybe like you're selling like hot sauce or something.
Yep.
They might see the ad today and they're probably going to buy today. They want hot sauce. They want it right away. Yeah, they want it right away. But you see like the varying price points and just from the varying industries, the nature of the industry, that timeline between the first time that they saw any content related to any ad to the time that they became an actual customer, it can really vary. But again, if you have a full funnel approach where you hit them with a Instagram ad a month ago because you're just casting the wide net, then that has a residual impact on your conversion rate on Google. Yeah. It's really crazy how it all works together.
Everybody has their own journey, and it's really important. Like that marketing funnel that you touched on is really important. And we talk about this all the time on every sales call that we have, but it'd be cool for you to touch on like, casting a wide net on social media might be top funnel. Google might be middle funnel. Would you agree with that? Like kind of Google ads because you're somewhat of a warm lead. And then what is the structure you see as your funnel? It's a little different for everybody, but.
So it honestly comes down to the different strategies that you're leveraging within those channels too. Cause someone can complete kind of the full funnel on Meta, of course. It's not to say that they can't. You can have an ad where it's like shop now, go to the website, and then you convert.
Yep.
But so in each of these channels, you can actually attack each phase of the funnel. Mm-hmm. So on Google Ads, for example, you can run campaigns where it's just get me as many impressions as possible. So get me as many eyes on Google as possible. Yep. But then you can also run down funnel campaigns like that are really directed towards driving purchases. Maybe you're optimizing them for on-site checkout or on-site purchase, like thank you page. So you can track that this campaign drove 30 purchases this month. Mm-hmm. So you can attack all of the stages in the funnel on each of these individual channels. Yeah. But if we're just kind of taking a step back and looking at where these channels might be best served, then it's like things like display or anything that's leveraging like cost per 1,000 impressions, like maybe a reel on Instagram, I would say falls top funnel, whereas Google generally is more down funnel because a lot of people are already searching for something that's relevant to your website. Yeah.
And that's where kind of paying for the ad comes in key because if you're ranking above the competitor, they're like there and say they just wanted shoes. We'll stay with that example. If you're paying to rank higher, you're obviously more likely going to be seen rather than if you don't pay for anything and you come up on like page 4. No one's going to page 4 on
exactly
your shoes. So
and then also talking about the middle of the funnel, that can be like your remarketing campaign. So you have the ability to kind of reserve ads to people that maybe like spent a certain time looking at your video ad. Yeah. Maybe they visited the website but didn't convert, and then you're like trying to reposition. Like notice that you stopped by. Like, so there's like in each channel you can kind of attack all 3 phases.
So many different ways to get targeted now. And then like I get random texts. It's like, hey, you still want our hotel sense? I'm like, what the hell? Like, I do kind of want that hotel.
Or I noticed you left something in your cart.
Like, who the hell are you, man? Yeah, and it's crazy, but. And then obviously the bottom of the funnel is that conversion, which comes from your website and having like a really nice user experience to convert. And that's obviously your product or service is at the very bottom, because it's like if they don't want it, they're obviously not going to pay for it. So a checkout is really bottom, but it's crazy, like brand awareness at the top, and then warm leads, and then retargeting campaigns, and at the bottom it's really that ultimate conversion.
Yeah, take that action.
Exactly. Yeah. And it all comes down to brand awareness. Really, it's like who you have on your team. Do they like you? Are they comfortable? Can you trust? Can you trust them? Are you sketchy? Like so there's some websites we talk to, like people, like we pull them up before we get on the call. We're like, there's no shot. Yeah, they're gonna even generate any money. These are the sketchy guys. The SEO score like 20.
Exactly. Yeah, because even like we were talking about, like if you get that user on your website, whether it's from Google Ads, TikTok, any of these channels, you get them on the website, and then they don't convert. It can come down to a number of things, like maybe, like I said, maybe it's a high ticket thing, and it's like, all right, I got to think about this. I got a budget. Yeah. Or it could just be, well, this website is terrible. Yeah. There's a stat in SEO. I think it's people on average, it's like they only spend like 8 seconds or so on the website before they decide like, never mind. If the website takes too long to load, I know I do this. I'll be like, all right, screw it. Like I'm not even, what's the point? So there's a lot of things tying back to the SEO. Like once you get them on the website, it should be a slam dunk. If it's seamless, and like they should be converting as fast as possible. But again, depending on other factors, like maybe the price or whatever, maybe they need to take it back and think about it. But you don't want to ever lose them because your website was not up to par.
Which also kind of steers into the other side of like what we offer and what we do, and we don't have to get too much into detail. It's like that's the content piece to it. It's like having really great videos that are high quality, 4K imaging or videos. Like you really want to have really high quality graphics, images, videos, like all over the place. So it's not like, a stock photo on your website that's like, what the hell is this? Just like this doesn't have anything to pertain to you, or like this isn't show me that you have more value. It's really like a visual experience once you're on the website as well. So we don't have to get too in depth, but like that's also a huge important piece to it. But I kind of want to steer way back to when we were talking about you also were, once you got approached by Google, you've been there for almost 5 years now, or approaching 5 years, which is crazy, man. And obviously the agency's taken off now. So we'll see what the future unfolds on that, but we'll talk about like the creative that you were talking with, or that you started with. You said you had a lot of, you're working with them on contracts and doing some SEO side work and helping them out in different aspects. Is that kind of where the entrepreneur like kind of showed you how to run a business? Maybe it wasn't the best, and then you kind of started your own thing. What was that journey?
Yeah, so definitely so that kind of comes full circle, right? Like learning what being an entrepreneur is in the most simple form, just shoveling driveways and stuff like that. And then that creative collective I was a part of was the first taste of like, this is, all right, we got an LLC. We're doing real contracts, like terms of agreements, like learning more of the admin stuff. Yeah. I'm like, oh, okay. Like I've known how to do the work, because
boring stuff.
Yeah. I've known how to do the actual work, because that's I've been a worker. Yeah. But now it's like, all right, if you're running it, this is what goes into it. And I still didn't know a lot about like accounting or anything like that. That had to come over time. But that was my first taste of like the admin work and kind of managing. And that was a great experience. We got burned a couple of times. You learn from that.
Just not having like the right structure in place.
Yeah, and the contracts get better and better. I don't even know how many contracts I've written at this point in my life, but it's like it's something where it doesn't scare me at all anymore. I've been there many times, invoicing. I started learning like the operations that go into it, and I mean,
which is a huge piece to operating a business, right?
Exactly, yeah. And of course, you have like your courses in college as a business student that kind of touch on the base level, but there's nothing like actually doing it. And
you don't know anything unless you do it. It's crazy.
Exactly, yeah. So this was like, I'm telling you, man, like the past 4 years has just been like the culmination of, I feel like, all the work I've been doing like my whole life, but it's like it's finally coming together. So
yeah, it's dope, man. So like, what was that experience like, and what was the jump? Obviously, we met shortly after that, because that's actually how we got connected, was through that agency. So
well, that's funny, because this is a thought I had earlier in our conversation. But so after that ended, and it was a great experience. Like we were doing a lot in the creative space, which has always been cool to me. Like stuff in the music industry and all of that. But ultimately, we parted ways, and I think that innate feeling we were talking about, So you and I had met probably like 6 months before that kind of ended, that situation. And I think it was like a month that I took off from basically having anything on the side. And that's where I just didn't, I felt weird. I felt bored. I was like, I'm not building, the metaphor I like to use is like, I wasn't watering like all of my plants, right? Yeah. Like there was something where I was just like, wow, this like entrepreneur like spirit that I had that I've been nurturing my whole life, like for just a month, I wasn't doing anything for it, and I felt really weird about it.
Which is crazy. Just real quick, is like most people are like that 9 to 5, and they're like tired. They go home, and then it's just like
I liked having that vibe. Then I don't know, like it was a lot of late nights, but it was something exciting, and it kind of it energizes you in the long run.
Creating something.
Yeah, and the whole time I was doing that too. Before jumping to Google, I was even like I was working the door at a local bar. Like I was trying to get like had to live, man. I'm making money wherever I can, and so that would be it's crazy. Like I would go to 9 to 5, work that 5 to like 2 a.m. bouncing.
Damn, man.
That's
definitely innate because I don't have that in me, man.
Hey, that was my weekend money. That was my weekend money. It's crazy, but yeah, I just felt bored in that like 1 month period, and that's where you had been kind of putting the idea in my head that maybe we should start something, and I was like, yeah, fuck it, like let's do it, and I took a lot of the learnings from that, you know, everything, but from that previous like collective, just understanding that like team size, like starting something with one other person that has like all the skills that like I said, going back to college, I didn't want to do like the finance, I didn't want to do the accounting stuff. Having like the natural skills that kind of complemented. I knew that I had a feeling it would work out, and then I mean we're doing pretty well now. But that's man. It's all, I feel like it all happens for a reason. That's man. The whole story's kind of been like that.
It's crazy because I remember being like somewhat involved with that agency, just knowing people like from college and stuff, and then the people that you were with that creative agency, and then we took a couple trips together. We talked about stuff on the side. I had my own thing going on with my own personal brand. I was growing on. I was blowing up on social media for a while, and then. You know, you had the paid side, the SEO side. I had the content side. How to like kind of, because I had my own LLC, I had my own business. I knew how to start it, operate it,
you had more of the admin stuff too that like I still had to grow there.
Yeah. But it's cool because I've learned so much from you on that side, and
likewise,
you have a lot of like admin experience that you brought from there like over to me. Like your contract work is crazy, and now we just have these templates where we just switch up a few words and we're good. You know, and at some point, hopefully, we can automate that so we don't have to spend time doing that anymore. But it's become so much easier. Like if we could literally look into like a mirror of like 2 years ago and how we were doing these things. Like I remember literally being in my room and we're on LegalZoom and we snip that little ribbon. They're like, oh, you're business owners after like $700. We're like, that's it. That's all it takes. And then you kind of hit the ground running from there, man. I feel like I don't know. I mean, I would love to hear like your perspective on like what you're like. I don't even know how to describe this in like in a good way, but like, what has your experience like as you've started your own company? Is there anything that you've learned that you're like, oh shit, I wish I would have done that better, or I really want to learn this, or like what has been your overall experience since you've started your own thing?
I feel like honestly, as a business owner, like what I've understood in these past like 4 or 5 years is that you're constantly learning. Like I definitely every day, every week, I feel like I'm learning something new. I think the biggest thing is just consistency. Like everyone's had up and downs like over the past couple of years. It's been crazy with COVID and everything. But if you're consistent and can put together like processes, it just makes your life easier in the long run. Like you talked about the contracts. I told you, like it used to be every time that a new opportunity came up, I was writing like a new contract.
Oh, wow.
So
from
it's
scratch?
Like, from scratch, which is not, that's not efficient at all.
Not at all.
So figuring out how you can refine different processes, how can you make it repeatable? That's like the biggest piece of advice I've gotten in the past couple of years was just like you as a business, no matter what it is, if it's service or a product that you're creating, you need to come up with repeatable processes because that's ultimately how you can scale. Because if it's different every single time, you're going to be fucked because it's just not sustainable if you're just doing extra work over and over. It needs to be repeatable, and then that ultimately makes it scalable. So that's something that we focus a lot on this year is just like what are the processes that we can kind of automate or put together just a best practice like steps so that we are not losing any time and we're being as efficient as possible. And now that's ultimately why we're able to scale.
Yeah. And that's crazy because like it takes a lot of time to build that shit out. And I feel like that's what scares people away. It's like I had somebody call me the other day, probably a couple of weeks ago now. He was like, hey man, I'm thinking about starting a marketing agency. And I'm like, good luck. Fucking good luck. There's so much work that goes into it. Like, oh yeah, like I know how to like, you know, she can make videos and like we can just send them clients. I'm like, this is a lot harder than you think. It's like it goes back to talking about ads, SEO, you know, that top funnel stuff. Because creating a business is just like the funnel. Like you have to create a logo, typography. You have to have all that structure. And like you look at a logo right now, it's like, who is that? You got to recognize them. So that just comes with like networking, prospecting, sales.
It takes so much, man.
So much time and so much effort. And then we've spent so much time doing like the decks, the scripts, the everything that we've invested in, whether it's softwares or, you know, just like tools that we use. It's a lot of money up front and like a lot of things and a lot of education because there's like so many tools out there that nobody knows about and people upcharge and pay a shit ton of money for just for somebody to tell them like, oh, this is my email software that I use. And it's like, oh, well, if I would have known about that, I would have never paid you $5,000, you know, like just to hear about that. But there's so much involved in actually building out a structure of the business, right? And I feel like there's so much time that we spend like creating that. And like you said, it's so much easier to scale now. It's like, oh, we have a sales team. Let's hop on this call. It takes 15, 20 minutes. This is what we do. This is what we're really good at. This is our price point. Do you want it? Let's scale it, right? And that's coming from your background and my background. We both scaled companies. We've both been you've been a part of Google. So obviously who else is going to be better at running Google ads than somebody from Google at 5 years, right? And then, you know, having like a company that I've scaled and exited. And then at some point here, it's like we have so much value to offer rather than just a traditional marketing agency. It's like we can help you scale your company, whether that's just consultations or strategies or just outside of the marketing piece. Because marketing is it's probably the number one thing that helps you scale a business by far. Yeah. Like you need to market your product or service, but
that's why I went into it. Like I said, when I was picking majors, I'm like, all right, what's something that every business needs?
It's so broad.
Yeah, it's very broad. Yeah.
It's broad, but there's so much in there that if you are knowledgeable in it, it's one of the most scalable things in the world because everyone needs it.
Exactly. Right? Yeah.
It's almost like birth, death, marketing. Like everything. It happens literally everything. It's like the most in demand is like doctors and like even funerals and like that kind of stuff. But like, everyone needs to scale their business or their company or their product or whatever they're doing.
Well, even we haven't talked about personalized branding, but that's marketing too. Like everyone needs to be able to market themselves, even if you just want to stay in a corporate 9 to 5. If you don't market yourself internally, you're gonna get looked over for those promotions. It really is ingrained like in every aspect of life. Like you want to be well known, and what is the perception that people have of you? That's all marketing.
Yeah, man, it's crazy. And we could go into so much with like that, so much more on like the content, personal, how it actually relates to like people's lives and stuff like that. But I'm excited to see what the next year unfolds because we're projecting a huge year, man. And it's like, I'm so pumped up to have that. And honestly, I've never in my entire life, maybe it's that like single mom, 5 kids. Like I've always had like trust issues. I'm like, I don't really trust anybody. I'm out here just trying to scale it and make it to that point. But dude, you've been the best business partner from really start to finish, man. And I know we're not finished because we're about to explode this shit. But,
far from finished.
And I know we're going to be hopping on the podcast a lot, talking about a lot more stuff,
driving a lot more value.
Yeah, man. Yeah. We're going to be talking a lot, bringing a lot more value to the community because we're obviously creating on our social channel. We really want to like drive people to our educational and our strategies and consultations, building brand awareness, top of the funnel. So that's kind of what I want to gear towards. I know we'll do a ton of these, but your story is also sick. I want to touch on that too. Like from, your family, being immigrants coming over here, you having like this drive from such a young age. And obviously the podcast, I got to keep it on brand. And I always ask everybody before we hop off is what's your next move to continue the success that you've had from literally since you were like 10 years old, from, starting the music, getting in the music industry, selling beats to now owning a marketing agency. What's your vision to continue the success that you've had throughout your entire life?
Yeah, man. So I think it's definitely continue always learning. I'm one of those people that believes in that saying that like you should never be the smartest person in the room. And you see, we both have great networks, always keeping valuable people around me that I think I can learn from and that are good influences. But definitely gonna keep learning. I've also looked at every single like job or endeavor that I've gone into about like how can this enrich me as myself, my own personal brand. Like what tools am I able to add to my kit off of this experience? Of course. So I'll keep that kind of just in my mind as I approach everything in life. Mm-hmm. But my next move is really scaling this business with you. Hopefully being able to, go all in with it very soon.
Oh, yeah.
And make that jump because I know we're about to really have a great year.
Yeah.
And then ultimately, the next thing that I want to learn, I feel that I have a great understanding of like the tech side and really like the ground level work.
Yeah.
We've done a great job learning kind of the admin and how to structure and start to scale. Mm-hmm. Want to understand what it looks like to really like partner on that higher level with other brands, right? So
yeah.
Talking to the biggest man in the room.
Yeah.
As we start to work with like a bit more advanced companies, the Nikes and Adidas.
Yeah.
Like what does it look like when you've reached that level and you have like a full team underneath you, and how do you keep moving the business forward? Because like I said, don't want to be stagnant. Keep refining the processes. Yeah. So as we keep growing, want to make sure that like my strategic mind is growing as well. So we need to get in the room with some of these people and just understand like what that next level looks like.
Yeah, man. That's why I think that, like I said before, I think that's why we're so like level set and why I think things have taken off the way they have for us, because we have very similar mindsets, and that's like another huge thing that I've always wanted to make sure that I am more than ready, prepared, and capable of doing, is handling those meetings in those larger rooms with those big name people or big name brands. So I don't know, man. I'm excited to see what we've got going on, because the last 2 years they've flown by, but if we look back at what we used to do 2 years ago to what we're doing now, and then if we can fast forward, like even just like look and take a peek behind the curtain what the 2 years ahead of us is for, it's gonna be disgusting, honestly.
Yeah, it's gonna be crazy.
But man, you got a hell of a story. I know we've never really talked about too much from start to finish, so it's been dope. You inspired the shit out of me, man, and I'm really excited to see where we can take this thing. But I appreciate your time today, bro.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me, and I'll be back.
Yes, sir.